Hey, what's going on, everyone, and welcome to episode 36 of the Alec Walt Show. I'm your host, Alec Walt, alongside another very special guest, and today we're going to talk about the Chicago Bears. The Bears played the Buffalo Bills today in their second preseason game, and it was one of the worst football games I've ever watched. Joining me to talk about that game and more is Andy Hopper, the host of the Brew Party Podcast. Andy, welcome back to the Alec Walt Show.
Alec, dude, thank you so much for having me back. That was hilarious because I cannot disagree with you there that it was one of the worst games I've ever seen. I have it's really hard to show the camera right now, but sell the team, baby. That's the shirt I have on right now.
So, I mean, I get in the preseason, the games don't count. Sometimes you're looking for specific player evaluations. There's a lot of changes. You don't have your full roster. I get it. That was one of the worst looking teams I've ever seen. I mean, you guys were bad offensively. You guys were bad defensively. You missed an extra point, I think, early, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like watching that game as a Bears fan?
Annoying, frustrating. It's really hard not to get upset watching a game like that. But then at the same time, you have to tell yourself, all right, it's the preseason. We don't have all our guys out there. We have a lot of pieces on the offensive line that still need to be, moved around and figured out. They did just add Jason Peters to kind of shore up that offensive line, which, you like the move because you get a Super Bowl winning veteran. And he is 39, though, maybe on the wrong side of that, maybe getting a little too old. But as a whole, like you see what Dalton does, it's just he gets the whole first half to just go out there. And, he goes 11 for 17 with 146 yards and a touchdown. But the only reason he's over 100 yards is because of that 73-yard pass to, what's his name? Rodney Adams. If Rodney Adams doesn't catch that long touchdown pass where he had to go up and moss the DB, we're talking about a lot different day from Andy Dalton. He is this veteran, the presence. He signs the 1-year deal. He comes out last week, says, it's my time. This is my team. Didn't really look like it today at all. You can make the argument that he's going to be able to read the defenses better. He's more experienced, but he cannot move out of the pocket. And especially with the way this offensive line is currently constructed, it's way more refreshing to see a guy like Justin Fields, who currently has 5 carries for 46 yards, averaging 9.2 yards a carry in this game, is able to move. And it's a first down almost every time, guaranteed, if he can get around. The defensively, I'm not really too concerned at the moment, just because I think they played the starters and not even all of the starters for a couple drives in the first quarter. And then they went mostly to the backups. And then, the Mitchell Trubisky revenge game, I cannot help but smile and laugh all day today, watching him absolutely torch us, because that is absolutely what we deserve. Shout out to Mitch, 20 for 28, 221 yards and a touchdown. But it's just like, I don't know, Alec. What I'm trying to analyze it like in real time, and it's just like, I want to think the Bills are going to be a very, very good football team this year.
They will.
So you try not to take too much stock in that. And the Bears are a team that we're figuring out our place in this league right now, I think. And you also, it's just hilarious. You have an elite play caller like Brian Daboll, and just absolutely exposing Matt Nagy today, in my opinion. Just what he was able to do with Trubisky, and we could say all we want about it being a preseason game and all that stuff, but that Mitch came into this game with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, wanting to prove something to all those fans in Chicago, and especially those coaches on the sideline. So I guess to end this long rambling rant is I don't know how to feel about this game other than what the hell did I just watch?
So we're through 2 games. Justin Fields, the rookie QB, the guy you expect to take over as the face of the franchise. Yes, like we've said throughout this entire show, you can only take what you see from the preseason with a grain of salt. Of course, he's played with certainly not the number 1 receivers or number 1 offensive linemen on your team. But what have you seen out of the rookie QB so far through 2 games?
Excitement. Guys, week 1 of the preseason against the Dolphins, he comes out to a standing ovation from Chicago. The fans in Chicago are hungry for this guy. We are eager to watch this guy play. What I've seen so far is his ability to use his legs and get out of the pocket and make plays is elite. And it has a chance to develop into one of the better quarterbacks in this league, in my opinion, if he can stay on that right path. Because he was almost untouchable, especially last week versus the Dolphins. You see him get out, use his legs to make plays. I mentioned, a couple minutes ago, he already has 46 yards on the ground in this game that's going on currently, finishing up. So, he does have some stuff to work on, I feel, as far as like reading the defense, but the throws are there. He's accurate. He's had a lot of throws today. I think he's 8 for 16 currently today, but some of those aren't his fault. He put a ball right on Jesse James' hands in the end zone that probably should have been a touchdown catch. James only plants off 1 foot, doesn't really get enough extension there, but that's a connection to watch for. Justin Fields, Jesse James, they have been tearing it up at camp. If we do see them get on the field together at any time this year, I think they might be able to make some noise. But as far as Fields goes, I mean, in my opinion, I think it's why not put him back there week 1 after what we've seen from Andy Dalton through the first 2 weeks. It's just a bunch of 3 and outs. He did get the 1 touchdown, but other than that, it was bad. It was really bad. He was getting caught in the pocket. I think he was sacked twice. He's old and he can't move. Okay. I'm sorry, but I'm of the belief that you might need a little bit of a mobile quarterback in today's NFL, unless you are one of the elite pocket passers, which I don't believe that Andy Dalton is. Yes, he's got 9 years of NFL experience, multiple playoff games. So if they do start him, I'm not going to sit here and bitch and complain and be upset about it unless he starts, messing up real bad. Because if he can be serviceable, that's fine. That's what the Bears need. They need, I don't want to say just an average quarterback, but sometimes it feels like that. The past few years, it's just felt like they are average quarterback play away from being, not the best team in the league, but a pretty solid football team. There are a lot of questions on the defensive side of the ball as well. That contract that we gave to Robert Quinn is not looking great right now. He was supposed to be this presence on the other side of the defensive line alongside Khalil Mack. Through the first 2 preseason games, it's still not there. So we'll see. We have older guys kind of fighting for positions, fighting for spots, guys like Josh Woods. We have Alec Ogletree is on the preseason roster trying to make it in that linebacking core led by Roquan Smith. You have Eddie Jackson back in the secondary. Obviously, Allen Robinson. I think Darnell Mooney has a real good chance to make a huge leap to be a number 2 receiver for the Chicago Bears this year. And it's just, but I guess you're right. It all starts with the quarterback. What do I want to see as a fan? The exciting thing to see is I want Justin Fields starting on week 1 versus the Los Angeles Rams. What I think we're going to see is Andy Dalton. What the general public really hasn't seen so far this preseason. Obviously, we have these first 2 preseason games, but not everybody's going to camp. Not everybody's seeing these guys in practice and what they're doing on a day in and day out basis. And all the reports there is Andy Dalton is having a very solid camp, but so is Justin Fields, and he's keeping it interesting for this starting quarterback conversation. So I think in a perfect world for Bears fans, we get Justin Fields week 1, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I still think he has a few more things that he can perfect. I mean, obviously he does, right? He's a rookie quarterback that hasn't played an official NFL game yet, but I think he's going to have to work on, reading the defense a little bit better. And that just comes with time and that comes with reps, right? So, and the thing I didn't understand what Nagy did with Dalton today is keeping him in for the entire first half when the broadcast team was talking about building a rhythm and wanting him to, get a rhythm with these receivers, but you're playing the second team. Why is he out there with the second team? Wouldn't you want at least 1 or 2 of those guys that he's going to be on?
I don't understand why he didn't play any in the first half.
Mm-hmm. Fields, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like Dalton was doing anything.
Exactly. He had the 1 touchdown pass.
Yeah,
and other than that, it was
1
nothing.
throw, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know what is going on in Hallis Hall right now, what they are thinking in the Bears building. From all reports so far, it would be Andy Dalton is day 1, but let's go next week to the 3rd and final preseason game. If we get another performance from Andy Dalton like this, where it's just 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, and you got the other team jumping out, scoring touchdowns on their first 3 possessions, we are going to be hard pressed to find anyone in Chicago that is not going to be calling for Justin Fields to start week 1. And why not? Everybody's going to make the Patrick Mahomes, Alex Smith argument. Oh, Aaron Rodgers sat for 3 years. Maybe the Bears aren't in that position. You know, the Chiefs were a very, very good football team at the time, and they still believed what they could get out of Alex Smith. And, you know, who's to say if Patrick Mahomes didn't play that year, he wouldn't have gone off? We don't know. It's all hearsay at this point. And then, you know, Aaron Rodgers is sitting behind Brett Favre. So Brett Favre is not in the Bears building right now. It's a 30-something Andy Dalton. So I wish them all the best. You know, I said this to our buddy Tom Scavetta actually the other day when he was giving me some crap saying I need to get an Andy Dalton shirt just because obviously that's my name. And I'm like, I'm not going to get an Andy Dalton jersey. But at the end of the day, I don't care who's the quarterback. I just want him to be good.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you 3 reasons for him to start as soon as possible. 1 is Brian Pace. 2 is Matt Nagy. And 3 is Allen Robinson. Because if this is a bad year, or if you take too long with Andy Dalton, those 2 could possibly be out of a job. And how much longer can Allen Robinson deal with playing with below average quarterback play his entire career?
He can't. Like, if you look at the quarterbacks that Allen Robinson has played with, you know, throughout his career, it's Bortles, Mitch, Foles,
Dalton.
Well,
it will be.
It will be. So, yeah, and that's I like how you mentioned Nagy and Pace, because do they make the argument? It's like, oh, well, you know, you need to give us the extra year because we have Fields waiting in the wings for next year. But like, how long can you just keep Justin Fields on this shelf as like, oh, this is our shiny new toy? At a certain point, you got to break it out and see what happens, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't want to discount Andy Dalton, what he's been able to do in his career, because there are not a lot of guys that can say they've been a consistent starting quarterback in the NFL for, you know, 9+ years. He did go 4-5 with the Cowboys last year, and we all know about the Cowboys struggles. So I'm not saying that he won't be able to win games in Chicago, but I mean, he's going to lead to 3rd place in the North. I think with Justin Fields. I'm not saying we're going to knock off the Packers, but I like Justin Fields to get this team a wild card spot.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Mm-hmm. You guys, the division is not very tough.
You got the Packers at the top, yeah, and then the Vikings maybe. Exactly. I don't know what we're going to get from the Vikings. I have no idea.
The game has actually just come final. The Buffalo Bills defeat the Chicago Bears 41-15. Justin Fields not finished 9 for 19, 80 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 4 carries, 46 yards for a long of 16. Just an overall terrible day for the Chicago Bears. So one thing you noticed from the fans today is they were constantly booing. After drives. You know, they were cheering after that 1 touchdown. Congratulations. You did something there well in the first half. But, you know, if this goes into the regular season, Andy Dalton's starter, he's consistently getting booed. You know, how much room for error is there? Because you want to make sure you play Fields at the right time, not going into a game where he's down 4 touchdowns in a terrible situations. Oh, like you guys did today in the preseason game.
Right. So, I mean, let's look back to last year. Mitch Trubisky gets pulled after week 3 or in week 3 after the first half. Maybe week 4. So I could see a similar situation happening. Let me tell you this, as a Bears fan, you guys heard on the broadcast, everybody booing Dalton. It's going to be exactly that the first time he makes a mistake. The first mistake that Andy Dalton makes during the regular season, fans are going to be calling for Justin Fields. You can book that. There already are now. Just imagine him throwing a late pick or a fumble when we're driving down the field and we have a chance to win the game. It could even be in the first quarter or something like that. Like the first thing he does that they don't like, you're going to hear the boos. And I mean, this all comes down to Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. And it's due because Nagy came out, last week? I think he said, he goes, believe it or not, I'm going to be doing what's best for Justin Fields, not what's best for me. I could care less about, you know, everybody's saying this is my last year or I'm coaching for my job. I want what's best for him in his career. And you know what? What's best for him is hopefully in turn going to be what's best for this organization, what's best for the Bears. You know, I haven't been happy with Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace in a couple of years, to be honest with you. I've let those frustrations known. on my social media and on my podcast, but this is a make it or break it year for them. I don't know how, as Chicago fans or as the ownership of the Chicago Bears, can look at Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy after let's say 8-9 finish and be like, yeah, let's run this back again. I mean, everybody, you go back to the double doink. I truly believe that the Bears had just as good of a chance as anybody in that playoffs to make the Super Bowl. Win it, who knows at that point? But, I mean, just for it to end on something like that, and that just kind of took the wind out of everything, all the momentum that this franchise had built up. Yes, we lose a couple guys. Yes, you lose Vic Fangio, who is just, in my opinion, the best defensive coordinator in the league when he was doing it. So there's just so many question marks on this team, Alec. It's like I mentioned earlier, what are we going to do on the offensive line? So you go out in the draft and we trade up and we get Tevin Jenkins out of Oklahoma State. Incredible pickup. He's a guy that's first-round talent that
I was on the show when they drafted him.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
You were pumped.
I was very pumped. So we get him, but he's hurt. He had to have surgery, so he's going to miss at least week 1. He was projected to be like a day 1 starter. It feels a need there. I know James Daniels didn't play today. Jason Peters didn't play today. We got guys like Arlington Hambright, who may have the best name in the NFL, who's gonna be he's a second-year guy out of Colorado that's gonna have to prove it. We also went out and got Larry Borum from Missouri, I think in the 5th or 6th round this year, who was getting some snaps today. They still have Alex Bars. They have Sam Mustipher who they can move around. But there are holes to fill on that offensive line. And does 39-year-old Jason Peters and rookie Tevin Jenkins absolutely fix that? I don't think so. So when you look at it that way on the offensive perspective, because they want to pound the rock. They want David Montgomery to get 20 carries a game and then make it as easy as possible for whoever they have under center. If you have the inexperienced offensive line, I guess I see both sides of the argument. Do you want the guy in Andy Dalton who is more experienced, can read the defenses maybe a little bit quicker, you'd like to make quicker decisions and get the ball out, and you don't, this sounds terrible, but you don't really care if he gets beat around back there and hit? Or do you bring out Justin Fields, who you're like, okay, he's new, you want your new rookie, this asset, he's going to be the face of your franchise, you want him to be around sustainable. You don't want to get him hurt right away, but at the same time, he's got to get hit sometime, and he's mobile. And with the lack thereof of offensive line protection, might be a little bit better off because he can move around, he can be shifty, he can get out of the pocket and make plays with his feet, and not just running, even getting out and throwing across his body. He showed he was able to do that against Miami pretty well. So it's going to be interesting, man. I've told a few people this, that normally going into every season, I'm sure you can say the same for your Patriots. You have an expectation, right? Mm-hmm. Of what this team's ceiling and what the floor is. I got no idea, dude. I have no idea what to expect from the Bears this year. I think perfect world, we win 10 games. I think that's everything has to go perfect, absolutely everything. Do I think they're going to win 10 games? No. Do I hope? Of course I do. But yeah, I just keep going back to this. I don't know, man. I just don't know.
Well, Andy, I hope I was able to help you get stuff off of your chest after that
were.
Brutal second preseason game for the Chicago Bears. Before we let you go, my man, how can my listeners here keep in touch with you on social media and listen to your podcast?
Absolutely. So once again, I want to thank you for having me back on the show. I always love ranting and raving about my teams, especially the Chicago Bears. So yeah, I'm the host of the Brew Party Podcast. You can find me wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, or just go to www.thebrewparty.com. It has all of our episodes, links to listen, or you can just listen right on the website. We also are on social media. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Brew Party. You can follow us on Facebook at The Brew Party Podcast, and we are also on YouTube, youtube.com/The Brew Party. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe, turn on those notifications. We usually post one episode per week. I actually took this week off because my guest canceled on me. but it's okay. So check out my episode from last week with Greg Huss and Jimmy Nelligan from the Growing Cubs podcast. They are a minor league baseball podcast for the Chicago Cubs. They kind of help me break down all the moves that Chicago made at the trade deadline and what to expect from this new wave of prospects that the Cubs have acquired. I talk sports. Like I said, I'm a big Bears fan. So when the football season does roll around here in a few weeks, it's going to be a lot of Bears content. I usually drop my episodes either Wednesdays or Thursdays. It just kind of depends on the week and what's going on. But yeah, man, sports, not taking myself too seriously, trying to have a good time and having a few cold beverages here in the process. So, Alec, I do need to get you on the show because I'd love to hear your thoughts, man, on the Mac Jones and Cam Newton situation up in New England, kind of similar to what we just talked about with Fields and Dalton. So thanks again for having me. Bear down, go Bears. Let's hope we never have to watch a game as terrible as that again. But if you are a Chicago fan, it is inevitable. So we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Well, whenever you need me, man, just let me know. I'd love to talk some Patriots football on the Brew Party. Feel free to follow Andy on all forms of social media. He's a great follow, great podcast. Thank you again for joining me here on the Alec Walt Show. That's it for this episode of the Alec Walt Show. I'm Alec Walt alongside Andy Hopper. What do you think of the Chicago Bears? When should they start Justin Fields? Feel free to comment that below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Down the Block Sports for more of my exclusive content. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you very soon.